What if I told you that beneath every narcissist's charm, beneath their captivating confidence lies a frightened child, desperately terrified you'll discover who they truly are? It sounds extreme, even unbelievable, but psychology reveals this striking truth at the heart of narcissistic behavior. Narcissists don't truly believe they're better than you. They live each day terrified that you'll see they're not. Here's a surprising fact. Nearly 75% of people with narcissistic personalities experienced significant emotional neglect or excessively conditional praise during childhood. This isn't just a statistic, it's a clue that unlocks the hidden reason behind narcissistic traits. Psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula emphasizes that narcissists constantly exist in psychological survival mode, masking deep insecurities behind layers of arrogance, manipulation, and charisma. Brené Brown vividly labels narcissism as the shame-based fear of being ordinary. Imagine the narcissist as a psychological turtle protected by a thick, impenetrable shell, but hiding within it a vulnerable, fearful core. Renowned psychotherapist James Masterson provides this profound metaphor to illustrate the narcissist's reality. Their entire existence becomes an endless performance, carefully designed to keep their shell intact, hiding insecurities that feel unbearable. Have you ever wondered how far a narcissist will go to keep this mask from slipping? Think carefully, because this question isn't rhetorical, it's vital. Narcissists don't just fear embarrassment or criticism, they fear psychological annihilation. They'd rather sacrifice relationships, careers, even their happiness than allow vulnerability to emerge. Throughout this video, we'll peel away the layers, exposing the 5 deepest fears narcissists desperately hide from the world. By understanding these hidden fears, you'll gain powerful insights, perhaps not just into narcissists, but into human nature itself. Are you ready to discover what's beneath the narcissist's mask? Have you ever felt terrified of losing someone you deeply care about? Now amplify that fear, not just tenfold, but 1,000-fold. Imagine your entire sense of self-worth hangs by the fragile thread of another person's approval and presence. For narcissists, abandonment isn't simply painful, it's existentially devastating. Julie L. Hall, an expert psychologist, makes a powerful assertion: rejection in any form is the narcissist's worst fear. But why is rejection so terrifying to narcissists? Because for them, rejection doesn't just represent emotional pain. It symbolizes being fundamentally unworthy, disposable, and irrelevant. Even the smallest perceived abandonment, a missed call, delayed response, or cancelled dinner, can trigger profound panic, rage, or manipulation. Consider this scenario. A husband showers his partner with lavish gifts and affection, yet at the first sign of her independence, he erupts into jealousy or anger. Or picture a boss who appears confident but quickly becomes controlling, even abusive, when employees try to leave or assert autonomy. These reactions aren't merely unpleasant, they are desperate acts driven by sheer terror of losing control over people they depend upon emotionally. Here's a disturbing paradox. Narcissists often sabotage relationships first, pushing away loved ones before abandonment can happen to them. Dr. Ramani Durvasula calls this the narcissist's paradox, a cycle where they desperately crave connection but inevitably destroy it through their controlling behaviors. Deep inside, they believe that rejection is inevitable, so they strike first, not realizing they're ensuring the very abandonment they fear. And what happens when real abandonment occurs? The result can be explosive, a phenomenon psychologists call narcissistic collapse. Narcissists might lash out viciously, fall into profound despair, or frantically try to win back those who've left them. It might seem irrational to outsiders, but to the narcissist, this extreme reaction feels like fighting for survival. Ask yourself honestly, have you seen someone who seems incredibly strong yet reacts dramatically to minor setbacks? This hidden fear explains their actions. Narcissists live perpetually suspended over an abyss, desperately gripping the thin thread of external validation. To them, abandonment isn't just loneliness, it's falling endlessly into darkness. Understanding this fear provides clarity about why they behave in ways that seem baffling, cruel, or destructive. Yet, here's a deeper truth to consider. Aren't we all at times afraid of abandonment? Maybe by seeing the extreme version within narcissists, we gain compassion not only for them, but for ourselves. Could recognizing this universal fear help us build healthier relationships? Keep this in mind as we move forward, because the fears we'll uncover next only deepen our understanding. Think carefully about this question. What's scarier, being seen for who you truly are, flaws and all, or spending your entire life desperately hiding behind a facade? For narcissists, the fear of exposure isn't simply a mild worry, it's an existential nightmare. They don't fear criticism or embarrassment the way most of us do. Instead, they live in terror of their carefully constructed identity shattering completely. Psychologist and author Dr. Sam Vaknin, himself diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, describes the narcissist's inner self as their ultimate enemy, something they guard obsessively, fearing it will sabotage them at any moment. To a narcissist, exposure means psychological annihilation. Even the smallest criticism or suggestion that they might not be perfect triggers intense emotional reactions, known as narcissistic injuries, capable of shattering their illusion of superiority instantly. Here's a striking real-life example. Picture a renowned CEO who dazzled the public for years, seemingly invincible, admired for unprecedented success. Yet beneath that polished image lay deception and manipulation. When the truth finally broke, exposing massive financial fraud, the CEO didn't simply lose credibility or wealth, he completely unraveled. Rather than acknowledging responsibility, he lashed out furiously, blaming everyone but himself. Why such an extreme reaction? Because being exposed meant losing his entire constructed reality. It was the psychological equivalent of death. This fear is powerfully illustrated in the ancient Greek story of Narcissus, the beautiful youth who became trapped by his reflection, unable to pull away for fear of losing sight of perfection. Narcissus wasn't merely vain, he was paralyzed by fear, terrified to look beyond his perfect image into the imperfect truth. Eventually, consumed by his obsession and fear, he wasted away. Modern narcissists are no different. Their lives are controlled by the mirror of public perception, terrified that even the slightest imperfection could lead to disaster. But let's pause here and ask a deeply personal question. Could it be that we all share, even subtly, this same fear of exposure? How many of us carefully curate social media profiles or public personas, terrified that others might discover our hidden insecurities? Narcissists simply embody this universal fear to an extreme, debilitating degree. When you see a narcissist react explosively to minor criticism or fiercely deny obvious truths, remember they're fighting not just embarrassment, but annihilation. Every conversation, every relationship, every carefully chosen word and gesture is meticulously crafted to uphold an illusion. They'd rather lose friendships, careers, even their mental health than allow the terrifying vulnerability of exposure. As we journey deeper, consider this. Understanding narcissists isn't just about recognizing their behaviors, it's about exploring the fears that lurk within all of us. And if we confront those fears head-on, perhaps we can break free from our own illusions, even as we begin to understand theirs. We all want control. It gives us comfort, security, even power. But have you ever stopped to wonder how far you'd go to maintain control over your life? Narcissists aren't simply controlling individuals. They're prisoners of their desperate need to dominate every aspect of their surroundings. Losing control doesn't just threaten their comfort, it threatens their entire sense of existence. Dr. Craig Malkin, an expert psychologist specializing in narcissism, describes the narcissist's relentless need for control as a profound attempt to avoid vulnerability. To a narcissist, vulnerability equals powerlessness, and powerlessness equals annihilation. Behind their outward confidence lies hidden chaos, a profound insecurity they mask by obsessively orchestrating everything around them. Think for a moment of the classic tale, The Emperor's New Clothes. A king obsessed with maintaining absolute authority is deceived into believing he's wearing magnificent clothing, visible only to the intelligent. Rather than admitting he sees nothing, revealing his vulnerability, he proudly parades naked before his subjects. But when an innocent child suddenly points out the truth, the illusion collapses instantly. This isn't merely a story, it's a profound metaphor illustrating precisely why narcissists cling desperately to their sense of control. Losing it means exposing their weaknesses, facing public humiliation, and surrendering power completely. Consider a common scenario, a partner whose charm quickly dissolves into aggression the moment you suggest doing things differently, or a boss who micromanages obsessively and erupts in rage at the slightest deviation from their plan. These aren't merely controlling behaviors, they're driven by intense anxiety, a panic response to even the smallest loss of authority. They manipulate, gaslight, threaten, or emotionally blackmail those around them, not out of pure malice, but to regain control and escape their underlying terror. Psychologists describe an extreme scenario known as narcissistic collapse, an emotional breakdown triggered when a narcissist faces undeniable loss of control. In these moments, they might sink into despair, lash out violently, or desperately try to re-establish dominance. What appears irrational or disproportionate to outsiders is, to the narcissist, a last-ditch effort to survive. Now consider honestly, haven't you sometimes experienced discomfort when situations slip beyond your grasp? Perhaps we all fear losing control, but narcissists take this fear to devastating extremes. They're not simply tyrants, they're terrified souls fighting ceaselessly against vulnerability. And tragically, their obsessive need to control eventually pushes away the very relationships they crave most deeply. Reflect carefully as we move forward. Could understanding this fear of losing control help us recognize not only the destructive patterns of narcissists, but also our own tendencies toward dominance and manipulation? After all, true strength isn't about never losing control, it's about courageously facing uncertainty and vulnerability. Keep this truth in mind as we explore the next profound fear, one that may resonate deeply with all of us. Have you ever experienced that sinking feeling of being invisible, unnoticed, unappreciated, forgotten? Imagine living in a constant state of fear that unless you remain exceptional, admired, or constantly validated, you simply don't exist. For narcissists, insignificance isn't just uncomfortable, it's existentially terrifying. Here's a startling fact that few realize. Psychological research shows narcissists are significantly more likely to plunge into severe depression when their public image falters than almost any other personality type. This surprising truth uncovers just how deeply they depend on external validation to anchor their very identity. Being ordinary isn't just disappointing to narcissists, it's catastrophic. Brené Brown brilliantly defines narcissism as the shame-based fear of being ordinary, a powerful insight revealing the hidden torment narcissists endure daily. To them, ordinary means worthless, invisible, forgotten. Every moment without recognition or admiration triggers intense emotional distress, panic, or aggressive behavior aimed at reclaiming the spotlight at any cost. Picture someone you might know, a colleague who constantly interrupts others, desperate to keep attention on themselves, or a friend who becomes bitter when you praise another person's achievements. It's easy to dismiss these actions as irritating or selfish, but beneath the surface, they're driven by an obsessive need for significance. For narcissists, attention and admiration are like oxygen. Without it, they suffocate psychologically. Imagine a social media star thriving on thousands of likes, followers, and comments, seemingly happy and fulfilled. But one day their engagement suddenly drops. Instead of accepting it gracefully, they spiral, blaming algorithms, followers, or rivals, frantically manufacturing drama to reclaim lost attention. To outsiders, it might seem trivial, even laughable, but for the narcissist, it's devastating. Confirmation of their deepest fear: invisibility, insignificance, nothingness. Here's a crucial point that we rarely acknowledge. Don't we all sometimes worry about being insignificant? Aren't we also at times chasing admiration and validation, hoping to feel seen and important? The narcissist merely embodies this universal fear at an extreme destructive level. But recognizing this might allow us not only to understand their painful behavior better, but also to reflect honestly on ourselves. The tragedy is that by obsessively seeking significance, narcissists ironically isolate themselves even further. Genuine connections are impossible because relationships become transactional. Others exist solely to affirm their importance. Ultimately, they find themselves trapped, prisoners in a lonely cycle, chasing significance yet feeling perpetually insignificant. As we move toward our conclusion, keep in mind this haunting paradox. In desperately chasing the illusion of extraordinary significance, narcissists become profoundly isolated, achieving exactly what they fear most: becoming truly invisible. Perhaps understanding this can guide us toward more meaningful, authentic connections, freeing us all from the fear of insignificance. Think for a moment about a time you took a deep risk, revealing your authentic feelings to someone important to you. Remember how scary yet powerful that felt? Now imagine living your entire life terrified to ever show that authenticity. Convinced vulnerability equals total annihilation. For narcissists, vulnerability isn't merely uncomfortable, it's their ultimate fear, a psychological impossibility. Dr. Ramani Durvasula describes this vividly. Narcissists avoid intimacy precisely because intimacy demands genuine emotional exposure. Revealing their true selves isn't just uncomfortable, it represents losing complete control over their carefully crafted image. To them, vulnerability is synonymous with weakness, shame, and eventual rejection. They believe, often subconsciously, that if anyone truly sees them, they'll be abandoned or destroyed. Consider a seemingly perfect couple whose social media is filled with affectionate posts, romantic trips, and glowing admiration. Privately, however, one partner, the narcissist, consistently sabotages real intimacy, pulling away the moment genuine closeness appears. They might start arguments over trivial things, cheat repeatedly, or emotionally withdraw abruptly. To outsiders, their behavior seems inexplicable. Why destroy such apparent happiness? But beneath these destructive actions is desperate self-protection. They fear intimacy more profoundly than loneliness itself. James Masterson's metaphor of narcissists as psychological turtles perfectly captures this dynamic. Behind an impenetrable emotional shell lies a vulnerable, frightened core. Any attempt to connect genuinely feels like an attack, triggering defensive aggression or withdrawal. The narcissist mocks vulnerability in others, calling emotional openness weak, pathetic, or overly sensitive. Not because they truly despise it, but because it reminds them of their own hidden fragility. Perhaps the most powerful illustration of this fear is Oscar Wilde's timeless novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Dorian trades his soul for perpetual outward perfection, hiding his true, corrupted self within a secret portrait. He becomes trapped in a life of lies, terrified to face his hidden self, until he finally tries to destroy the portrait, the symbol of vulnerability, ending up destroying himself instead. Just like Dorian, narcissists would rather annihilate relationships, careers, and even themselves before risking exposure of their true selves. But here's a profound question we rarely ask. Could it be that we all at times fear vulnerability? Narcissists simply represent an extreme form of this universal anxiety. We all wear masks to some degree, presenting curated versions of ourselves to the world. Terrified someone might discover our hidden insecurities. Remember the mask we talked about at the beginning? The one narcissists desperately wear to hide their true selves. Perhaps true freedom begins only when we bravely remove our masks, embracing vulnerability rather than fearing it. Narcissists tragically cannot take this step, imprisoned by their own fears. But what about you? If this exploration into the deepest fears of narcissism resonated, if it helped you understand someone or even yourself a little better, then join me right now in sharing this message. Hit the like button below, share this video with someone who might benefit, and subscribe so we can continue this profound journey together. Because recognizing these fears isn't just about understanding narcissists, it's about becoming brave enough to face who we truly are.